Welcome to the Universal Objection Handling Masterclass. In this training, we're going to deeply internalize a four-stage framework that will forever change how you handle sales objections. If you've ever been stumped by a prospect saying, I need to think about it, or it's too expensive, or I need to talk to my partner, this is for you. We're not here to memorize canned responses. We're here to understand the psychology behind objections and learn how to think through them in the moment like a true closing expert. Why is this important? Because objections aren't just statements. They're symptoms of hesitation, fear, or unanswered questions in your buyer's mind. As Mel Robbins points out, part of your brain's job is to talk us out of anything that involves change. In other words, your prospects instinctively resist change, even change that could improve their life or business, because their brain craves comfort and familiarity. That resistance often comes out as logistical sounding objections, right? So the money objection, right? But under the surface, there are emotional sticking points like fear of making a bad decision, fear of loss, or even just the inertia of staying in their comfort zone. Great closers address both logistical and emotional levels of an objection. The framework you'll learn is isolate, reframe, why, and action. It is a universal model to guide a prospect from initial resistance to a confident yes. Each stage has a purpose. Isolate the objection, zero in on the real issue, and ensure you're addressing the true blocker, and only that. Reframe the objection, shift the prospect's perspective on the issue, turning negatives into neutrals or even positives. Explore the prospect's internal why. Probe their deeper motivation, the reason why they wanted to solve this problem in the first place, so they emotionally commit to the solution. Drive to action. Guide them toward a decision or next step that resolves the objection and moves the sale forward. Throughout this masterclass, we'll break down each stage in depth with advanced insights and real examples from the Objection Vault 2.0. So you can see exactly how this works for objections like, I need to think it over, it's too expensive, I have to talk to my partner, and more. By the end, even veteran closers will have a clear mental framework for handling any objection, no matter how tough or unexpected. So let's dive in. So step one, isolate the objection. The first step when you hear an objection is to isolate it. In other words, figure out the exact concern behind the objection and make sure it's the only thing holding your deal back. Too many salespeople hear a prospect say the price is high and immediately start defending the price or offering discounts. But what if price was just a convenient excuse, masking a deeper worry like uncertainty in your solution or just a lack of urgency? If you answer the wrong objection, you get nowhere. So we isolate to avoid chasing ghosts. Isolating an objection has two parts: acknowledging the concern and then clarifying it. Acknowledgement is crucial. It shows respect and prevents the buyer from getting defensive. You'll notice in every Vault example, and if you don't have access to that, it's only for my members inside of my communities, okay? Example, the first response is gentle and understanding. Phrases like, that's not a problem, or, that makes sense, or no problem are golden. For instance, if a prospect says, I need to talk to my partner, a skilled closer might respond calmly, no problem. Listen, I'm not in the business of divorce, okay? But I really want to make sure you feel like this will help you, because at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to be doing the things and also going through the program. Okay. So for you, do you feel like this could actually get you to where you want to be? If the objection is, I just don't have the money right now, you might hear, that's not a problem. Tell me, if basically we were able to find a way to help you with the funding, do you think this program would still get you to where you want to be? Or if money wasn't an issue, do you feel that this program would actually get you to where you want it to be? Right. Or what you could do is you could say, okay, like money wise though, if you were to do this, is it something that's going to put you out on the street right now? What you can do is you can dramatize this, or what you can do is you can isolate money completely, get it out of the way to say, okay, make sure it's the only problem. These responses do two things. They validate the prospect's concern, dropping their guard, and they start to isolate it. What does isolating sound like in practice? Look at the last example for the budget objection. If you had the funds, do you think this program would get you to where you want to be? This question is powerful. It asks the buyer, hypothetically, if money wasn't an issue, would you say yes? If they answer yes, congratulations, you've just confirmed the only thing in the way is money. If they answer no or hesitate, it means money isn't the only issue. There's another objection lurking. Maybe they're not convinced of the value, or they have doubt about the product. In that case, you know you need to dig deeper into what's really holding them back. Either way, you gain clarity. In a similar fashion with the partner scenario, asking them, how are you feeling? Like, do you actually feel that this can help you, right? It forces the prospect to reveal their personal stance. Maybe they'll say, honestly, I do really feel it can help me. I really want to do it, but I feel I should get my partner's buy-in. Great. Now you know the desire is there. The partner is a process/permission obstacle, not a fundamental reluctance. On the other hand, if they say, actually, I'm not sure if this is right for me either, then the partner was just a smokescreen, and you have a different issue to tackle, and that's their own uncertainty. This is why isolate comes first. It ensures your next moves address the real cause. Another isolation technique is simply asking them if there is any other concern. You might say, is it mainly the budget that's holding you back? Like, if we found a workable solution for that, would you be ready to move forward? Or aside from needing to talk with your partner, is there anything else you're unsure about? This way you confirm whether the stated objection is the final hurdle or if multiple objections are stacked. The vault examples implicitly do this. They address one objection at a time, and often the language partner aside, or if you had the funds, assumes let's pretend that the obstacle was removed. Would you go ahead? If yes, you isolate it. If no, you probe for the other issue. Notice too how acknowledgement softens the start of these replies. That makes sense because we all make decisions based on our current perspective, right? Is how one script begins addressing, I need to think it over. It's emphasizing, of course, you want to think. That's normal. Or that's not a problem at all when a buyer says, I don't make rash decisions. By agreeing in principle or showing you understand, you lower the buyer's resistance so they'll actually engage with your next question. Never argue with the objection at this stage. Don't say, no, you don't need to think about it, or money shouldn't be an issue. Instead, agree or validate first and isolate the core concern with a targeted question. In summary, the isolation stage is about listening and clarifying. You're saying, I hear you. Let's pinpoint exactly what's holding you back. This gives both you and the prospect a clear target to work on. Once you have that target, say it's truly the budget, or truly the need for spousal approval, or simply fear of change, you can move to the next stage, which is reframe. Now, I always want to say, when you're in isolate, always isolate money first. If you think about it, if you get partner, figure out the money first and solve logistics first. Always solve logistics. Make sure they can afford it. Make sure this isn't something that's going to put them out on the street. My favorite thing to say is, that's not a problem if you need to think about it. I just want to check the money first for you, right? Because if you can't afford it, then at that point, I don't want to be putting you out on the street. So you tell me, like, if you were to do this, is this something that would put you out on the street to the point where, you're on the corner shaking a jar for change, or what type of position would this put you in? This allows them to be open about the money. And if you solve the money first, a lot of times you'll be able to move forward and move past any other fear, because a lot of people just don't want to admit that they can't afford the program. Step 2, reframe the perspective. Now that we know which objection is the real issue, it's time to reframe it. Reframing means showing the objection in a new light, changing the way the prospect perceives the problem. Psychologically, you're taking something that looks like a deal breaker and turning it into something manageable or even an opportunity. Now, how do we do that? By shifting the context or the meaning of the objection. Often this involves contrasting the objection with a bigger perspective. For example, one classic reframe for the budget objection is to compare the cost of the solution with the cost of not solving the problem. In the vault, you'll see a powerful question used in various forms. So you tell me, like, which is more risky? Is it more risky to get the funding together and invest in solving this, or to do nothing and hope things that kind of magically improve? This kind of question flips the script. Suddenly, it's too expensive turns into what's the bigger risk, spending money or staying stuck where you are. When framed that way, the prospect is pushed to recognize that not taking action has a cost too. Another logical reframe is highlighting how the brain interprets value and risk. Consider this line. Listen, you're going to spend the money regardless over the next 12 months, right? So what's money good for, if not to put it towards something that will allow you to become the version of yourself that achieves XYZ result? It's a gentle challenge. The money will get spent somewhere anyway, but to invest it in something transformative. And immediately after, the scripting delivers a risk reversal to reframe the fear of loss. Worst case, you follow the plan and it doesn't work, and you're eligible for a refund if you have a guarantee. Best case, we help you create the transformation. Either way, you have nothing to lose and you only have to gain. See how that works. The objection, I could lose money, is reframed into actually, you can't lose. It's either success or your money back if that's the case, or it's either success or you continue failing on your own, right? If you don't have a guarantee in place like that. The prospect focus shifts from fear of losing money to imagining safety and potential life-changing upside. Logically and emotionally, that objection just got defanged. Reframing can also appeal to emotion and identity. Suppose the objection is a vague, I'm not sure, I'm afraid of making the wrong decision, or I've tried similar programs and they didn't work out. Here you might reframe by addressing the fear of change directly. One Vault segment references a Mel Robbins insight that our brain tricks us to avoid change and then encourages the prospect to act in spite of that fear. It explains that 95% of people never reach their potential because they talk themselves out of action, and that you'll never truly feel ready. The right time is when you don't feel ready. By educating the buyer about this universal hesitation, you reframe their fear as a natural impulse to overcome, not a sign that something's wrong. They start seeing saying yes as a courageous move that most people won't make, appealing to their desire to not be one of those 95% who stay stuck. Let's look at a concrete emotional reframe from the Vault. For a prospect who says they've been burned before by a previous investment or program, the Vault uses a clever analogy. When you were 15, did you ever have like a terrible relationship? Maybe someone cheated on you or left you unexpectedly, and did that ever stop you from dating again? Or did you eventually find a meaningful connection? The prospect will chuckle and realize, of course, one bad relationship didn't stop them forever. Then the close comes. So let me ask, are you going to let one bad experience stop you from saying yes to something that could help you finally create XYZ result? This reframes their mistrust by reminding them not to generalize one bad past experience onto future opportunities. It puts the objection in perspective. One failure doesn't doom all future attempts. In fact, this story often resonates emotionally and encourages resilience and hope, making the prospect feel a bit silly about letting a past burn keep them from trying again. Another reframe tactic is to take the prospect's exact objection and flip it into the reason to move forward. The Vault literally calls one approach, that's exactly why you should. If a prospect says, I don't have enough time, you might reply, you not having time is exactly why you should do this. If they say, I don't have the money, you reply, not having the money is exactly why we need to start. It's a little counterintuitive, but it catches them off guard in a good way. For example, one script says, you not having X is exactly why you should do this. Tell me, if you were able to finally create XYZ result, would that allow you to insert desired benefit? By doing this, you reframe lack as a need. You're essentially saying precisely because you lack X, this solution is valuable. It gives you X or the means to get you X. It forces the buyer to consider that their objection, like lack of time, money, support, etc., is exactly the very problem that the product or service will solve, which turns the objection into a motivator. Reframing can also be done through storytelling and analogies. Human brains latch onto stories, and a good analogy can instantly shift perspective. The Vault is packed with these. For instance, in response to I need to think it over, one approach is the commute analogy. Basically, you would say, would you be open to looking at this from a different angle? And then we would paint a scenario. Imagine you drive to work every day on a route that takes 3 hours. It's stressful. There are accidents, constant delays. And imagine someone comes and says, hey, Instead of that 3-hour drive you hate, there's actually a shortcut that only takes 15 minutes. Would that help you? Imagine you said, well, I've always taken the long, frustrating route, so I'll just keep doing that. Would that make sense to you? The prospect usually laughs, no, that'd be crazy. Exactly. So if someone showed you a better, safer way to get to where you want to go, wouldn't it make sense to take it? This story is reframing sticking to the familiar as an obviously foolish choice when a better solution exists. It helps the buyer see that continuing with their status quo, the long route, or endless deliberation is absurd when a shortcut, your solution, is right in front of them. We can also reframe objections about timing or urgency. A prospect might say, I'm too busy right now, or maybe I should wait. A logical reframe here is pointing out that life will always get busy and that waiting only prolongs the pain. The Vault's time objection section frames it as an identity issue. Right now, you've got the perfect routine to stay exactly where you are. If you keep making decisions based on who you are right now, you'll keep getting the same result. And if you want to stay there, that's your choice. But is that truly is best for you? This challenges the prospect. Every time they say later, they are reinforcing their current stuck state. Nothing changes until they change. That's a reframe from I have too much going on into if I don't do this, I'll always have too much going on and I'll never progress. Notice how these reframes often combine logic, risk calculation, cost/benefit analysis, factual comparisons, and emotion, identity, fear of regret, desire for improvement. The best reframes speak to both. So to recap the reframe stage, once you've isolated the objection, you flip it on its head through strategic questions, analogies, or comparisons. You make the buyer see the issue differently, smaller than they thought, or controllable, or actually a reason to move forward. You're essentially answering the objection by challenging its validity or impact. After a good reframe, the mental roadblock in the buyer's mind shrinks. The price seems more reasonable in context. The timing seems more urgent, and the fear of failure turns into motivation to change. However, you're not done yet. Reframing sets the stage, but to truly overcome an objection, the buyer has to convince themselves. This is where the next step comes in. This is getting to their why. So step 3, you want to tap into the buyer's why. Once you've shifted how the prospect views their objection, you need to dig deep into their internal motivation, their why. Why did this person consider your product or service in the first place? What outcome do they crave, or what pain are they desperate to escape? This stage is all about making the prospect verbalize their own reasons for moving forward. When they state the rationale, it cements in their mind and carries far more weight than anything you could tell them. Psychologically, what we're doing here is twofold: amplifying the pain of not changing and highlighting the payoff of taking action using the prospect's own words and feelings. People are driven by pain and pleasure. They want to avoid suffering and gain rewards. By exposing their why, you stir up those emotional drivers, and this not only builds urgency, it also makes it their idea to solve the problem rather than you pushing a solution. So how do we uncover the why? By asking insightful, open-ended questions. A simple example from earlier. After isolating that money is the only issue, the Vault scripting asks, can you share with me though, why do you feel this would help you specifically? Then the prospect might talk about their goals, because if I join this program, I believe I can finally lose weight. I believe I can get the coaching that I need to get XYZ result. I believe I can improve my business revenue and allow me to pay my employees more. Now they are voicing the benefit in relation to their life. That statement has huge psychological power. It's basically them selling themselves on why the solution is valuable. You can also directly remind them of the pain that led them here. For instance, earlier you mentioned you've been struggling with pain point for years. Let me ask, how much longer are you wanting to deal with that? Another year? Another 5 years? A line from the Vault's emotional appeal section asks pointedly, how much longer are you wanting to deal with insert pain point? That forces the buyer to confront the idea of living with their problem indefinitely. A discomforting thought, and usually they'll say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Exactly. That's why we're here. Similarly, the Vault uses future-oriented questions to spur the why. Well, what's going to happen if you don't find a way to finally solve this for good? Or for the hesitant buyer, you tell me what's going to happen if you don't create this transformation? Like, what happens if nothing changes? These questions make the prospect visualize the consequence of an action. Often anxiety, continued frustration, maybe falling further behind. People often suppress these thoughts. Our job is to surface them. When the prospect clearly sees that doing nothing means staying in pain or seeing it worsen, their why or their need to change becomes a lot stronger. On the flip side, we also want them to envision the benefit and say why it matters. One great question from the vault after reframing a lack question is, if you were able to finally create XYZ result, would that allow you to insert desired benefit? For example, if you were able to double your sales this year, would that allow you to expand your team and ease your workload? The prospect will say, absolutely, yes. The follow-up is this: is there truly anything more important than achieving that outcome right now? This sequence makes them articulate that the outcome of your solution has real, tangible importance in their life, perhaps the top priority. You've taken them from thinking about the objection to thinking about their dream outcome. That shift is huge, and they start to emotionally associate moving forward with reaching that outcome and associate not moving forward with missing out. In practice, the why stage often overlaps with reframing, and many reframes end with a why question. For example, in the partner objection scenario, after isolating the partner's role, the rep asks, based on what you told me, do you think your partner would want you to learn how to fix root cause so that you can transformation? And then after that, and I guess what's in it for them if you do solve this? Like, what do they benefit from it? These questions tap into the prospect's why from a relationship angle. If I fix my problem, say get healthy or increase income, my partner benefits too. Maybe I'll be happier, less stress, will have more financial freedom, etc. Now the prospect is considering how everyone wins if they take action. You're gently moving them from the objection, I need to ask my partner, to their deeper motivation. I want a better life for me and my family, which is why my partner would ultimately support me. This is a brilliant 2-for-1, and it both addresses the partner concern and reinforces the personal why. Another example, in the I need to think about it case, right? After reframing the perspective, the script asks, okay, and are you 100% happy with where you are right now? The obvious answer is no. Okay. Otherwise, right? Like, why are we even talking? But this makes the prospect admit dissatisfaction. Then it follows. So the same level of thinking that caused you to be in this position can't be the same level of thinking you use to get out of it. But the hardest thing is making decisions based on where we want to be and not where we are. So what choices do you need to start making to adopt the mindset that will actually get you to XYZ results? See the progression. You're essentially saying your current thinking got you here. You need new thinking to get out of it. So what choices or actions would someone with your goal make? This makes the prospect reflect on their why and positions taking action as a necessary choice to become that future self. The psychology here is that people are far more persuaded by their own words and reasons than by yours. And in this stage, you're facilitating that, asking questions that lead them to talk about what they really want, and why they want it, and why delaying or avoiding it is not acceptable. They become almost a self-advocate for the solution. A prospect who has just told you, yeah, if I could achieve XYZ, it would change everything, and nothing is more important than that, is extremely close to closing. They just define the stakes for you. So before we move into the final step, a quick note: tone and empathy remain key during the why exploration, really throughout the whole objection handling sequence. A joking tone, a curious tone, sometimes a challenging tone. You should ask these questions though with genuine curiosity and concern. This isn't an interrogation, it's more like coaching. And the fact that you're coaching the prospects to coach themselves. When done right, this stage often feels to the buyer like, wow, that's a good question, and they gain clarity through your conversation. They might even thank you for helping them to see their situation differently. That's when you know you're not selling, you're helping them overcome their internal hurdles. And now, with their why rekindled and a new perspective on the objection, it's time for the final step, guiding them to take action. So step 4 is drive to committed action. The last stage is action. So where you guide the prospect to a decision and a clear next step. After all the isolating, reframing, and digging into why, you don't want to leave the conversation hanging. This is where you seal the deal, or at least secure a firm commitment that moves things forward. Think of it as converting all of that mental and emotional progress into a real world outcome. The key principle here is make it easy and logical for the buyer to say yes, or take whatever next step is appropriate. By now, ideally, the prospect's logical concerns have been reframed and their emotional desire or pain is front and center. They're teetering on the edge of a decision. Your job is to push them over that edge confidently but respectfully, so they don't retreat back into indecision once the call ends. One straightforward way is to ask for the action clearly but in a positive, assumptive way. So for example, simply ask, so what do you want to do from here? This question posed after you've handled the objection often prompts an honest answer. Some prospects will say, let's do it, music to our ears, obviously. Others might reveal a final smaller hesitation. Well, I'm almost there. I just need to know X. If it's another objection, you repeat the process on that objection. But many times by this point, the prospect will state their intention to move forward or seek your guidance on how to proceed, which opens the door to closing. Another phrasing the vault uses frequently ties back to their goal. So what do you feel is the best next step to actually achieve XYZ result? Or what action do you feel is going to allow you to achieve that outcome? This is a gentle close. It asks them to articulate the solution. Often after the discussion, the only logical action is to start the program or to move forward with this, right? By having them say it, you get a powerful micro commitment. It's essentially them telling themselves what they need to do, which you're right there to facilitate. In more direct terms, I'm confident this is the right path for you. So let's take that leap of faith in the process and in yourself and get you started. So are you ready to move forward so that you can become XYZ person? That phrasing encourages and assumes the positive rather than saying, well, do you want to sign up? Or, anything like that where it's kind of uncertain. Always frame the action as the natural, smart conclusion of the conversation. Give them something in an action where it's like almost impossible to say no to. Now, sometimes the action is not an immediate purchase, but a step that secures commitment. For instance, if the prospect truly must consult their partner or handle an external step, don't just say, okay, let me know what they say. Instead, schedule a firm follow-up or create a conditional close. The Vault gives a masterclass example in the partner scenario. So after discussing the partner's likely support and the risk of delay, the rep would basically say this: when might you be able to get back to me in the next day or two to let me know what you guys actually decide on? The reason this works great is it's polite. It assumes they will talk to the partner soon and locks in a meeting so the deal doesn't slip away. By getting a concrete follow-up, a time, tomorrow at 3 p.m. or whatever, you just roll it really firm. You greatly increase the chance of closure and you avoid the endless voicemail tag or the ghosting that plagues open-ended, I'll get back to you situations. An even more advanced approach shown in the Vault is the partner commitment down payment close. This is generally a little bit more next level, but it's also kind of conditional based on the offer you have, and it demonstrates how to creatively drive action. The idea is to ask for a small commitment now, even before they speak to the partner, with a built-in safety net. So for example, the rep might say, okay, so what we can do is we can get you started with like a payment plan today if you have financing where nothing is due up front. We do this as an emotional commitment to moving forward on your goals. We found that when people go to their partner with some form of commitment while still respecting them enough to include them in the final decision, it shows a level of certainty and conviction that comes through when they explain why they need this. In other words, what you're doing here is you're putting a placeholder down, and then you can add this in. Now, if you come back to me and they say, I don't want you to make this change. Let's keep everything exactly the way it is. Be unhappy with your income, be unhappy with your weight, whatever it is. One, let me talk to them. And two, we'll refund the down payment and cancel the program without hesitation. Only if you have that as an option. If you don't have that as an option, just don't mention that you'll refund it. Okay. Just say, let me talk to them. All right. Now, so next steps would be me sending you the link, getting that taken care of and scheduling a time to meet. right? So is that an okay next step for you? Or what would you want to do from here? Do you see what happened? So we've guided the prospect to take action now, so we get them to sign up with no money down or a small refundable deposit, which psychologically gets the buyer over that hump of committing. And then the buyer feels, all right, I put my name on this, I'm in, pending my partner's okay. At the same time, the buyer is assured it's risk-free if the partner truly objects, so they feel safe. 9 times out of 10, when the prospect goes to their partner with that kind of confidence, I've already reserved my spot because I really believe in this, but I want your input before it's final. And they also have a story to go to the partner with as to why it would benefit them. The partner is usually going to support them, especially since there's an easy out if needed. This technique massively combines action with empathy. It respects the partner dynamic, yet prevents the sale from stalling. Even if you don't use a down payment clause, you should always aim to concretely define what happens next. Maybe the action is as simple as, great, I'll send you the agreement right now for your signature. Or, let's get your enrollment set. It takes just 5 minutes. Shall we do that? Or I'll email you the payment link as we speak and you can secure your spot. The point is to strike while the iron is hot. The longer a prospect stays in limbo after feeling convinced, the more chances their mind or someone talks them out of it again. You want to carry their excitement or resolve straight to a result. One more aspect of the action step is mitigating any final friction. This can mean reiterating things like the guarantee or celebrating their decision to reinforce it. For example, if they're teetering, you might say, I know it's scary to commit, but remember, committing is the hardest part. After this, it's just following the plan day by day and trusting the process to get you the results that you want. And you're not doing this alone. We'll be with you each step of the way. The vault actually uses a line like committing is the hardest part, and after this part, it's just following the plan and, trusting the process to get the results you've been searching for. To comfort the prospect at the close. That last bit of reassurance can give them the last bit of courage to say, yes, let's do it. Finally, once they agree, the next step is to congratulate them and firm it up. If they're signing up, welcome them aboard enthusiastically. The only time in the sales process where I say be enthusiastic, but if they're agreeing to a follow-up meeting, thank them and send a calendar invite immediately. Make sure you get it booked on the calendar and make them feel good about the decision for any form of commitment. The goal is that they leave the call not in doubt, but thinking this was the right move and I'm glad that I did it. Wrapping up, remember that the isolate, reframe, why action framework isn't a rigid script. It's a thought process in the heat of a sales conversation. Objections can take many forms, but if you internalize this approach, you'll never be stuck. You'll instinctively stay calm and curious. Acknowledge the objection and ask questions to pinpoint it. Shift the lens and present a new way to look at the objection that eases their concern, addresses both facts and feelings. Dig into motivation. Get them talking about why they want this and what's at stake so their own desire to solve the problem outweighs their fear. Lead towards a decision. So strike while the insight is fresh and guide the prospect to take that next step, whether it's signing up, scheduling, etc., with confidence and clarity. Every line you use should serve one of these purposes. No filler, no generic platitudes. You've seen how even a single sentence from the vault can carry a lot of weight when it's targeted. Which is more risky? You have nothing to lose, only to gain. Is there anything more important than that outcome? How much longer will you endure this pain? How much longer will you deal with XYZ problem? Each of these, deployed at the right moment, hits either the logic or the emotion needed to tip the scales. Also, notice the layered insight behind these strategies. We're addressing the objection on multiple levels. The surface level, from the literal concern, the personal level, their life goals and fears, and even the philosophical level, how they make decisions and who they want to become. This is why it feels natural and not pushy. You're actually helping the prospect work through their own resistance. You become a trusted advisor in that moment, not just someone trying to sell something. As you practice this framework, it will start to feel fluid. You won't be thinking, okay, now I'm in step 2, must say a reframe. You'll simply respond with empathy, asking clarifying questions and allowing the prospect to challenge themselves, give them challenging perspectives, and invite the buyer to consider their own reasons. And objections will start melting away. Even advanced closers who've been doing this intuitively can benefit from consciously using this structure to troubleshoot any stalled deal. So next time you hear an objection, take a breath. Remember, you need to isolate, reframe, why, action. Instead of getting thrown off or going on the defensive, you'll guide the conversation like an expert psychologist and strategist rolled into one. This is how you handle any objection, no matter how universal or unique, with confidence and grace. Master this, and you won't just handle objections, you'll embrace them as opportunities to deepen your connection with the buyer and lead them to a decision that's truly in their best interests. Now, go out there and put this to practice. When the next prospect says, I need to think about it, you'll know exactly how to respond. And you might even secretly smile knowing that this is your time to shine. So happy closing.